7, 8, 9. There we go. Hey, what's up guys, my name is Jamie. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to use local notifications, which is just push notifications entirely local to the device. So for instance, I have this app right here, which we're going to be building today, where I can click this button and then 3 seconds later, I'll receive a push notification in my app. So that's the kind of thing we're going to be doing in this video, and at the very end, I have a special little trick for you guys to increase your app's user retention, so be sure to stick around to the end and then I'll share that little secret. If you guys are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more videos like this, and if you wouldn't mind, please drop a like if you're enjoying the content, and let's get into it. Alright, so to get started here, I'm just at the documentation from Ionic, and I'm going to go down to installation and then copy this first command to install the Cordova plugin. So in my own blank project, I'm just going to run that command to install the Cordova plugin. By the way, if you're new to Ionic, be sure to watch my video on installing Ionic and getting started. But with that said, let's go back and then now we got to install the npm package for local notifications, so let's go do that as well. Alright, there we go. Alright, now inside of my module file, I'm just going to import local notifications from that Ionic package we just installed, and then inside of the providers array, I'm going to add a new entry here for local notifications, like so. Now this will allow us to go inside of whatever component or page we want to use the local notifications in, and then first of all import it, and then finally inject it into the constructor like this, just so that we can use it within this home component. Okay, now I think it'd be cool if we had some buttons on the home page which registered push notifications for at some point in the future. So let's go make some buttons. This first button is going to be called like 3 seconds, and then so this will be like the timeout for how long the notification is in the future. And then I'm going to have this button call a function on the click event, and the name of that function is going to be register notification, and then we'll pass in the number of milliseconds in the future we would like to delay the notification. Okay, and then I'm just going to duplicate that and change the second one to be 10 seconds. So now we have two different buttons for testing our function we're going to make. Okay, so back in the TypeScript, I'm going to declare that function which takes in the ms, the milliseconds, and that's of type number. So I'll just declare that so that my types are all square, and if you declare the type, then it'll allow you to autocomplete things like if I say ms dot, then it'll have all these methods on it because it's of type number. So that's why I'm declaring the type up there, just to make it a little bit more friendly. And then now I'm going to reach inside of the local notifications plugin which we've injected, and then I'm going to press dot, and it's going to try and autocomplete all these different things. Okay, and scrolling down here, I see there's a method called schedule. I think that sounds probably like what we're looking for. And it looks like it takes in an object of type iLocalNotification. So I'm just going to put an empty object right there, and then press go to definition, and then try and find the type of object. Okay, so I found the type. It's in this file right here, node modules at Ionic native / local notification / ngx. Okay, so this is the type of object which the notification wants me to pass into it. It can take in an ID, and it's important to note that this is unique, so like you don't want to register two notifications with the same ID, otherwise the second one will override the first one. So for now we're just going to let it default to 0, which is what happens if you don't pass anything in. That's what this question mark right here means. But we do want to pass in a title. The title is one of the most important things about the notification, the title and the text. So let's pass in those. I'm just going to make the title called my ms notification, just so that I can tell which notification is being fired when it goes off. And then in the text, I'm just going to say my detailed description, and that should be fine for now. Okay, then finally down here, I'm going to add a trigger. So this trigger is information about when the notification is supposed to be scheduled for. And for that, I'm just going to make a new date, combining the current time plus the number of milliseconds that was passed into this function. So if you guys aren't familiar, date.getTime, that returns the current time in milliseconds. So new date returns the current date, and then getTime returns, or like turns it into milliseconds. Like it's basically like the number of milliseconds from 1990 something. It's just some number that people decided to represent the current date, and then we just add on the number of milliseconds from that date, which is 300 milliseconds, say, for 3 seconds. And so with that, that's actually enough for us to be able to test it. So I'm going to build it for iOS. So I'm going to run Ionic Cordova build iOS. And if you're unfamiliar with building for iOS and Android, I did a whole video on building on a Mac, and I even covered building for the web as well. So if you haven't seen that, be sure to check that out. Okay, now here it is. My simulator is up and running. So I'm going to click the 3-second button. And then as soon as I try and do that, it's going to try and register push notifications. So basically, wherever in your code you call the first attempt to register a notification, it will ask the user if you can send them notifications. So I'm going to click allow, and then there we go. We already got the notification because I took so long explaining it. But if I try a fresh one right here, and it looks like actually it's just kind of immediately firing the notification despite us telling it that it should be in the future. It's probably a bug with the plugin. Not gonna lie with you, this plugin, I've seen it be pretty buggy. But looking at the documentation once again, there are all these different fields that we can pass. So we tried at, and there's also in and then a unit. So we could say in like 3 seconds, and like this unit right here would be, if we go to that type, it can be any of these things. So instead of at, I'm actually going to try instead using in, and then instead of ms, I'm just going to rename this to be just like seconds. And then for in, we can use seconds right here. And then we need to pass in the unit, so I'm going to import that class and then access the .second. So this is kind of like an enum. It's like basically a way of naming a bunch of different variables. So if you guys aren't familiar with how an enum works, basically they're just a bunch of predefined options that you can select, and then that's just a way of making sure that you don't misspell the unit type. That's usually what people use it for, is just correcting spelling mistakes. Okay, so with that, then I'm going to go over to the HTML here and then change these numbers to represent seconds instead of milliseconds. And then with that, we should be able to build and run once again and see if that works. You never know with these plugins because sometimes they're a little bit buggy. But hey, it's a price I'm willing to pay for getting to build to iOS and Android and the web, all with the same code base. Well worth it to me. Alright, here we are once again. Let's try it. 3-second button. 3 seconds later, we get the notification. It worked. Okay, let's try the 10-second button. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There we go. Alright, the buttons are working now, so if you want to use this plugin, then use the in and the unit. Those are the ones that actually work. Okay, now if you're wanting to provide more advanced configurations, then I suggest going to this website right here, the Cordova plugin local notifications package on GitHub, and in here they have the full-fledged documentation, which would take several hours to cover, but hopefully I gave you a good boost and helped you get started with using local notifications in Ionic. I'm going to quickly tell you one last little secret as a little treat for you guys to sticking towards the end. Many apps like to try and engage their users more using local notifications. For instance, if you've ever downloaded one of those dating apps or something, the moment you open the app, they'll register notifications for like days out in advance, like maybe the next day, maybe in like 5 days, and then maybe in a couple of weeks. And they're just trying to send you notifications saying, hey, like, there are a lot of people on the platform right now, it's super hot, you should hop on and you'll find your match. Or just like depending on the type of app, they'll say something to try and get you more engaged. And so the way that I would do that using Ionic, if I were trying to increase the engagement of my app, is inside of, not inside of any page, but inside of the app.component.ts, I'll actually write out the code for you. First, I'll import the local notifications and then inject that in the constructor in the same manner. And then up here at the top of the class, I would declare a bunch of messages in an array. I'll just call them encourage usage messages, since that's what they're trying to do. And then each one of these messages would be something like, hey, come use this awesome app again, or missed you, come back. These are kind of exaggerated, of course, but basically in here, you'd want to have like a bunch of messages, probably like 30 of them, just saying things that might encourage the user to use the app again. And then I would go find some npm package for shuffling an array, because we're going to need to shuffle those messages so that they show up in a random order so that the user doesn't think, oh, well, this guy's just sending me the same message over and over. So I'm going to install that using npm install inside of my root folder. If you're new to npm, be sure to check out my video on npm. And then I would import it up here like this, import star as shuffle array from shuffle array. And this is just a little package we're going to use to shuffle up our results. And then up here it says we can just call shuffle with the collection. So I'm going to call shuffle array, because that's my variable name, with the collection name. And then we can make a simple for each loop to iterate over each message. And then using that schedule method on the local notifications, we're just going to schedule this message for some point out in the future. So I would simply provide the text as the message, and then as the trigger I would use the same format that we're using in the home component with the in, and then the in would be related somehow to the index, maybe like the index times 2 or something like that, so that they would get a notification every other day or something like that. You can really do any sort of math here, but this is maybe something that I would do. They would just receive a notification every 2 days after they open the app to remind them to use the app, and then that would only go out as far as the number of messages which are defined in here, because the for loop will iterate over each one and then it will stop once it's done. And then also importantly, in the home component we did not provide an ID, but here we're going to have to provide an ID, and the ID can simply be the index in the array. So our for each loop contains the index, so like the first one is at index 0 and then the second one is at index 1, because arrays start with index 0 and then they count up from there. And then instead of second here I would do something like day, so every 2 days, but just for testing I am going to set it to second. And then I'm just going to declare a whole bunch of more messages up here just so that we can make sure that it is shuffling the order when we're testing it. Okay, now I'm going to build once again for iOS. Okay, now I'm starting up the app right now, and it's going to all happen very fast, so keep your eyes peeled. Okay, got our first one. Now test 5. These are shuffled, so now test 4. Missed you, come back. Test 6. Test 3. So you can see it's clearly working. And so the main idea is that instead of second, we would change this to day, and then it would register them all for days in the future. Also, we should probably add 1 right here to the initial index, because otherwise we'll get 1 immediately when we open the app, which would be kind of weird. So in the for loop, the first index will be 0, so 0 times 2 is 0, but we'll add 1 to that. So the first notification will be 1 day after we open the app. Second one will be 1 plus 1 times 2, which is going to be 3, so 3 days after we open the app. So it'll be 1, 3, 5, and then it'll just keep counting up by odd numbers. You can do anything here, like you could multiply index times index, so it's like exponential. But we're just going to do this for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that little trick, that little treat for staying towards the end. I think that's super important for increasing the retention of your app. You got to keep people engaged. You got to keep people coming back. Hopefully your app is good enough to do that on its own, but sometimes people just need a little reminder, and a harmless little message telling them to come back will do just that. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you wouldn't mind, please click the like button so that YouTube knows to recommend this video to more people, and also just show me that like you do enjoy this video, of course. Also, leave a comment down below. Do you like videos like this? I want to hear your guys' thoughts about what you thought of the video. Really appreciate that. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.